Everyone thought that he was just an ordinary boy, but he became the owner of two powerful jinns and conquered the seven seas. Sinbad is a miracle child who was born in a country named Parthivia, to an ex-soldier named Badr and his wife who had some crazy thick eyebrows. Their ancient world is riddled with war and politics, and various countries are trying their hardest to increase their wealth and influence. As Sinbad was born, the butterflies of light called Rukh that guide the world's destiny danced, and great powers of the world felt his presence. They realized someone has been born with a power so great that can change the destiny of the world. A meteor shower erupted in the sky soon after his birth, and the entire world could see the hint of the miracle that had taken place tonight. A couple of years have passed since then, and Badr, who is a war hero, is trying to cut any connections to his past life full of violence. He was instrumental in the victory of Parthivia in the recent wars, but he refuses to take his reward for that because seeing the gruesome war firsthand has changed him. Now he just wants to live a peaceful and honest life as a fisherman. However, during one trip to the sea, he finds out that little Sinbad ended up getting on the boat without him noticing. Badr is worried because the sea is a dangerous place and decides to take his mischievous son back to the coast. However, a storm soon approaches them, and they get lost in the sea. Badr tries his best to combat the storm and find a way out, but then suddenly Sinbad points in a direction opposite to where he was heading. He asks his dad to steer that way, and Badr decides to listen to a kid because why not? Surprisingly, they end up escaping the storm. Badr realizes that his son might have a special power that allows him to choose the correct destiny, and he believes that he can turn the world away from the path of greed and violence. 2 years have passed since, and Sinbad is 5 years old now. He visits his father on the beach every single day, bringing him his lunch. Sinbad is really fascinated by sailing and fishing and keeps asking Badr to let him come with him. Badr refuses, saying that he is still too young for that and promises to teach him everything when he gets a bit older. They sit on the beach and have their lunch when a bunch of people approach them and start trash-talking Badr. They call him a traitor for refusing to join the war and for not supporting his country and winning. Badr knows that the prosperity brought by the early wars has gone, but despite that, the people are stuck up on the idea of national pride and winning the war. He laughs at them and says that he doesn't want to participate in pointless bloodshed anymore. He doesn't care what happens to the country now, and he just wants to live a peaceful life with his loving family. The unruly bunch insult and beat him, and Badr lets them beat him unconscious without trying to defend himself. He wakes up a few hours later to find a worried Sinbad looking at him. Badr pretends that nothing even happened and picks up the food from the beach and starts eating it because hygiene was not invented back then. Sinbad is pissed at this dad because he believes that he is a coward for taking the beating like a loser when he could beat everyone. Badr tries to teach his son that fighting is not the solution, but Sinbad doesn't want to talk to him. He yells that he is lame and runs home. At night, their family sits down for dinner, and Sinbad is still upset, and Badr asks Sinbad to go get some water from the well because even kids can do that. Sinbad declares that he is a proper man as opposed to Badr and leaves the house. Badr's wife Ezra is worried about how the people are calling him a traitor now, but he doesn't care. She tells him that this also concerns her and Sinbad, and their life will keep becoming difficult if things stay like this. On top of that, they barely have food to scrape by. Before Badr could reply, Sinbad returned, telling his dad that he found something near the well. It turns out that an injured blonde man, and Badr rescues him. The man wakes up the next day and thanks Badr and family for saving his life. Badr claims that his son was the one who found him, and the blonde brute thanks him too. The man introduces himself as a traveling merchant whose ship got wrecked and he got injured. Badr accepts his story despite it being shady, while his wife thinks that they should kick the man out because they can't look after him with their finances. However, Sinbad is extremely comfortable around the blonde brute for some reason. He climbs on his head and asks why is his hair golden, and the man replies that there are a bunch of countries in the world outside with different kinds of people. Sinbad gets really hooked on the idea of exploring the world, hearing his stories that seem like fantasy. Esra tells Badr that he should tell the refugee to find a new place to live as they don't even have enough food for themselves. After listening to his wife's advice, Badr decides to do the exact opposite and invites the man to stay at his home however long it takes him to recover. Ezra is shocked and believes that her husband lost one leg and all of his brain in the war. The blonde man slowly starts becoming good friends with Sinbad, telling him bedtime stories about continents far and wide, the mysterious places he went to, and the strange people he met. One day, when Badr is out, the guy packs his stuff and tells Ezra that he has rested enough and now he will leave. Before he could leave, however, some guards arrive there looking for an enemy spy. They push Ezra to the ground, but then suddenly, the blonde man's switch is flipped and he turns into a murder machine. Ezra starts screaming, which wakes Sinbad up, and when he comes out, he sees the blonde brute smeared in blood of the dead soldiers around him. He quickly grabs Sinbad and takes him to the village center, threatening to kill him if the people don't give him a boat with food and money. Sinbad asks him why is he doing this because he thought they were friends, but the man tells him that he is a spy and nothing is more important to him than his mission. Ezra cries and begs people to help her son, but they all turn their faces away because they don't want to help a traitor's family. The brood is about to run away from the place when Badr comes out of the crowd and asks him to let his son go, but he refuses. Badr gets down on one knee because he doesn't really have another and begs him to let his son go, but the brood tells him that this is for his country. Badr tells him that if he surrenders to Parthivia and gives them all the info he has, he will be rolling in luxury, but the man refuses to do so and points his sword at Sinbad again. This makes Badr mad and he rushes towards the man and stabs him in the heart before he can even blink. He hugs his son, telling that he will tolerate anything but not his family being harmed. Sinbad can only cry as he sees the blonde man die and says that he really liked the stories he told. The next day, Badr is taken away by the guards for giving shelter to an enemy spy in his house. He is dragged through the village, battered and bruised because of their torture. He is forcibly drafted into the war again and sent to the front lines, leaving Ezra and Sinbad to defend themselves. They cry as he leaves and the villagers tell him to get out because they are also family members of a traitor. However, Badr gets up one final time and tells everyone to not harm his family. He throws away the clothes on his body, revealing the terrible injuries he received in war, and tells them to remember that this is something they idolize. Badr asks his son to be a man and take care of his mom and leaves for war with that. A few months later, the news of his death arrives, and in a casket, his sword is returned to his family. 9 years have passed since that incident, and now Sinbad is a 14-year-old teenager, ready to take on the world. Between the two empires, there is a dungeon said to have power beyond human knowledge. It is a place that both the Parthivian Empire and the Reem Empire have tried to conquer to win the war. Both have been unsuccessful, as anyone who goes inside the dungeon never returns. In a city called Contastia, a merchant's wagon is stopped by a group of ex-military men who try to steal from them. They are quickly defeated by Sinbad. The merchants offer him supplies in return for saving him. In the back of the wagon, they find a traveler named Yunan hiding in some baskets with some fruits. He takes Yunan back to his home and offers him a place to stay, which he accepts. In the village, he is loved by all and helps them care for the village. Yunan is greatly moved by his kindness towards everyone around him, especially his mother who has fallen ill after the death of Badr. At night, a group of soldiers along with their commander, Drival, make their way towards Tissen to bring in Sinbad, who has been avoiding his drafting for war. The next day, before Sinbad leaves for work, he tells Yunan that he can stay for as long as he likes, who in turn tells him that he will continue on his journey after he makes a tour of the village. After he leaves, Ezra tells Yunan all about her son, how he has grown to be just like his father and loves his family with the same passion. She tells him how her husband believed that Sinbad had the power to change destiny. She tells him that she feels that she is holding him back from his true calling. She asks him to guide Sinbad, as he has more experience as a traveler, and she does. A woman comes and tells the two that Sinbad has been captured by some military soldiers. Drival orders him to join the military. He refuses and tells them that they are not tools for him, and that he will not join the war that has claimed the lives of his father and many other village men. The people of the village agree with him. The commander doesn't back down and threatens him that if he doesn't join the military, both he and his mother will be killed for treason. Later, he explains to Yunan that joining the military means being sent to the dungeon, which is basically a death sentence. And for him, not joining the military means being killed as well. He explains that he can't die yet as he has to care for his mother and everyone else in the village. This never-ending war has left his empire in ruins and he wants to make it better. Yunan tells him that he should go to the tower. If the empire is really ruined, then he should gain the power of the dungeon to become king and save the empire and the world with his own hands. He tells him to accept his fate and obtain the power of a king. After telling him this, he disappears. Sinbad accepts his words and decides to go into the tower, but he cannot talk to his mother about it. His mother, already suspecting his decision, gives him his father's sword to take with him. She tells him that he has finally found his calling and that she doesn't want to hold him back. Outside the dungeon, Drival is getting ready to go in with his army. But before he can do so, Sinbad arrives and announces in front of the military that he will take the power of the dungeon for himself to save the empire and change the world. Leaving the military behind him, he runs into the dungeon. Inside the dungeon are the ruins of a beautiful city that have been taken over by dragons. Sinbad is in awe as he looks at the wonderful scene around him, and then suddenly he hears the cries of men. Drival's army is being attacked by dragons and all of them are killed. He is fighting a dragon who drives him towards a ledge and almost kills him, but he is saved by Sinbad, and the two escape together. They are arguing when the king of dragons flies over them. They go to its lair and find the king of dragons surrounded by all the other dragons and geysers. Behind the dragon is a door. Drago suggests using Sinbad as a decoy. He refuses. He asks him how many soldiers must have been sacrificed here by their comrades before, and Drago tells him that it doesn't matter, as dying for their country is the highest honor of a Parthian soldier. He leaves Sinbad behind and goes off alone to get to the door. Once he reaches there, the door won't open and he is spotted by the king. Sinbad saves him, but Drago asks him to kill him as he cowered in front of the enemy and failed as a soldier. Sinbad tells him that not wanting to die is not embarrassing, and that it is human to do so, that he is a human before a soldier. He tells him that neither the emperor nor the military has anything other than sending its people out to die. He wants to change this and create a country that protects its people. He then takes the shield and uses the geysers to get high into the sky while dodging the lightning breath of the dragon and killing it. By killing the dragon, they gain keys to open the door. They both cross it together and have each other's backs as they defeat many monsters together. Along the way, they both form a bond and realize that the opinions they had of each other were wrong. They arrive at a temple where Sinbad finds a magical lamp that contains Baal, the genie of wrath and heroism, who has the power to make one of them his master and give him the power of the king. The two fight one another to take his power. In the end, the winner is Sinbad. Outside the tower, the emperor's soldiers are waiting to take the dungeon's power and treasure from the one who claims it. Sinbad refuses and declares himself against the emperor. They try to attack him, but he escapes with the help of Yunan, who teaches him how to unlock his powers. Back in Tissen, he finds out that he has been in the dungeon for 2 months and that his mother's health has gotten worse in that time. As he visits her, she thinks he is his father and begins telling him all about how much Sinbad has grown. She tells him that Sinbad has taken his sword and gone on an adventure. She is proud of how much he has grown to be just like his father, and she loves him dearly. Soon after saying these words, she passes away. He is now famous all over the empire as both a hero for defeating the dungeon and a traitor to the empire. He leaves on a boat across the world to change it. After Sinbad defeated the dungeon, many others like it appeared all over the world. Many people have tried to defeat these dungeons, but none have succeeded. He is now known as the Dungeon Capturer and is currently lost in a place called Imuchak, where he finds Hina and Pipirika fighting the Abear Narwhal, but are soon overpowered by it. But before the monster can kill them, Sinbad arrives just in the nick of time, slaying the monster and saving them. Drago is given another chance to prove himself by his brother Barbarossa. He, along with the Emperor's secret forces, Shamlash, are sent after Sinbad to kill him and retrieve his sword. Sinbad tells Hina that he is brave for taking on such a huge beast with only a single harpoon. Soon Pipirika wakes up and congratulates her brother and tells Sinbad that Hina is a child name of her brother, and since he has defeated the narwhal, he can finally choose a warrior's name. Sinbad asks them to tell him more about Imuchak and its ruler. They tell him that their father is the chief, and he asks that they take him with them. Hina warns him that the people of Imuchak are not welcoming toward outsiders. He tells them that it doesn't bother him and that he wants to go meet new people and experience new cultures on his adventure to change the world. They take him back to their village to meet the chief. The village is preparing for Maharagan, a feast to celebrate Hina for becoming a warrior. The chief tells his children that they have discovered a dungeon and that he plans to send some of his men in. Sinbad warns him and tells him to stay away from it, while also revealing his powers and how he got them. That night he is attacked by the chief of Shamlash, Jafar. Sinbad defeats him, but he manages to escape and promises to be the one to kill him. Hina, feeling guilty for not killing the narwhal and deceiving everybody, decides to go into the dungeon and prove himself to be a real warrior. Sinbad goes after him to keep him alive, with the Shamlash behind him. Inside the dungeon, Hina is attacked by a group of flesh-eating butterflies and jumps into a river to save himself. He makes his way into the room with the door leading to the treasure room, where he defeats the monster, but is confronted by Jafar, Vidal, Mohado, Drago, and Fallon. Sinbad arrives and saves him before the fighting begins. They are soon overpowered and escape into the water. The water is frozen by Fallon, and they are barely able to escape. Before going inside the door, Fallon gives the members of Shamlash some healing potions. Drago is suspicious of the potion, but doesn't comment on it. Inside the temple, Drago summons the genie known as Valifor. He reveals Fallon to be a witch and banishes her from the dungeon with only a doll left behind. The witch is revealed to be working for Drago's brother, Barbarossa, who intends to take the king's power for himself. Drago tries to claim the power of a king, but is deemed unworthy. Soon our hero and Hina also arrive, and Valifor tells them that whoever captures Minafor can have his powers, but if they are unable to do so, they will be trapped in the dungeon forever. Everyone tries to capture him on their own, but is unsuccessful. Sinbad tells the others that the only way to capture him is by working together, and to give everyone a fair chance to capture him, he will not participate. When the others get suspicious, he tells them that he already has a genie. Sinbad ends up tricking the others into helping him catch Minafor. He tells them that his plan for power is greater than all of their powers combined. Then he reveals his plan to use the power of the king's vessel to create a new country that will change the world, and he asks the others to join him on an adventure around the world. Before they can give their answer, Jafar and his men are overcome by the power of the Black Rook and turned into a demon. Baelfor tells them that the only way to stop the demon from fully forming is to kill all the vessels with the power of Baal, but Sinbad refuses and announces that he will save all his comrades. Sinbad, Hina, and Dragal fight the demon. Dragal commands them to defeat the monster and survive. Baelfor disagrees and tells them that the humans that the demon took for its vessel are alive at its chest, and that the only way to defeat it, while keeping the others alive, is to make a single powerful shot through its center. All three men work together and help give Sinbad a chance to use his powers against the demon. As he's about to kill the demon when the witch Fallon sends one of her manifestations and takes away his sword. Through the manifestation, Barbarossa reveals to Dragal that he has been announced dead to the Empire and that he is a shame to the Dragal family. Dragal loses all hope, but Sinbad refuses to give up even as Hina is captured by the demon and he is beaten up badly by it. Hina, inspired by him, escapes from the demon and with the help of Dragal defeats it. The fight isn't over as the demon tries to resurrect itself by using the chief as its ideal core. Baelfor tells them that if they defeat the demon, they will kill the boy. Sinbad tries to pull Jafar out of the demon to save him. He is warned that by doing so he might be killed, but he says that he will do anything to save his comrades. He is transported inside the boy's memories, where Baal tells him that he must talk to him and save him, or else Jafar will fall into darkness and never return. Inside, Jafar is seen talking to his old self, who is crying and calling out to his parents, who he has killed. Jafar tells himself that there is no use crying as they don't have a home anymore. He had to kill his parents as he had no other choice. Sinbad hugs both Jafar and tells them that he will provide a home for him, that he will save him, and that he no longer has to survive on his own. He uses his powers to save him from falling into depravity and becoming a demon. After everyone is saved, Baelfor asks them to choose the king's vessel among them, and they choose Sinbad. All of them appear outside of the dungeon where the chief of Imuchak is waiting for them with his army. Dragal decides to go back to the Empire. He knows that it is a risk and that his brother can have him killed for treason, but he decides to take the chance as he has someone to protect back home. But before he goes, he receives the blessing of the king's Magoi and its genies. He's the first warrior ever to obtain it, but he doesn't yet know how to use it. Hina is finally able to take part in his ceremony and is given the name Hinahoho after being recognized as a noble Imuchak warrior. As everyone celebrates the occasion, Hina tells his father about his decision to serve Sinbad and travel the world with him. His dad believes in his decision and gives him his permission. Soon after that, Hina and Sinbad visit the king of Imuchak clan so that Hina can ask for the hand of his daughter Rurumu in marriage. While the king is not satisfied with Hina currently, he trusts his words that he will grow stronger and prosperous with Rurumu. He gives them his blessings, and with that, Sinbad and his friends leave the land of the Imuchak, embarking on the journey to become merchants. On the ship provided by the Imuchak, Rurumu teaches Sinbad and Jafar are taught about different things they must learn to become merchants. Jafar finds acting like a salesman out of character and calls Rurumu an old hag when he gets fed up by her lessons. He receives a karat chop to his face as a result, and she begins lecturing him about his conduct as a merchant. Soon, Sinbad also comes under fire, and along with Jafar, he also struggles to keep up with Rurumu's lessons. They are utterly exhausted by the time she finishes, but then find that there are perks to having a woman on board. Rurumu cooks some delicious food, and Sinbad and Jafar know that they should never disobey her. They begin studying earnestly after that, and in the meantime, Hina tells the other two guys to have drinks with him. However, as they see the demonic version of Rurumu scolding and beating Sinbad and Jafar, they give up on any day drinking plans. Many days pass, and finally the ship arrives at the First Kingdom on its way. Sinbad climbs on the mast and exclaims that they have reached the Reem Empire. The Reem Empire is like the Roman Empire of their world, and it is unparalleled in wealth and territory. Sinbad and his group have reached the city of Napolia, which is the business capital of the world. As soon as they see the crowd of eager people gathered in front of their ship, Sinbad declares that they will get to business without wasting a moment. He sets up shop immediately afterwards and begins luring people in to buy the unique products from the Imuchak tribe. People are curious about it, and Jafar shows them that they have the exclusive rights to sell the Imuchak products to the world. Sinbad uses his riz to impress girls and the gang around him to buy everything they can. Soon, two soldiers come there and demand to see their permits. Sinbad apologizes, says that he has not registered yet, and asks the soldiers about the registration procedure. The soldiers sigh on learning that he is a total noob, but they tell him that he must go to the Ream Merchant Union, which manages and controls all trade. The soldiers leave with that, and the crowd of eager people also get away from the shop. Suddenly, a mysterious blonde man in a blue robe comes there and requests to talk to the head of the store. He asks Sinbad to sell all the wares he has to him. Sinbad asks him if it is not against the law to sell goods without registration, but the man tells him that it is only illegal to sell things to the general public. He claims to have a license from the merchant union, so he can buy the products from them legally. The man tells Sinbad that since he has come here all the way from the north, it would be shameful if he returned home without selling much. Sinbad is still uncertain, but Jafar quickly takes up the offer. The blonde man gives them the written declaration of sale and leaves to get his workers to pick things up. Everyone starts talking about how this is the best case scenario for them because now they don't have to worry about the sales. The blonde man soon returns with a sack full of silver coins. Everyone is happy to receive the price for their goods, but at night, they find the truth when they stumble on the man's shop. He is reselling their goods for 5 times the price they were charging. Everyone thinks that they have been played, and Sinbad understands the full game plan of the blonde man. He holds an emergency meeting and says that they have no choice but to register with the merchant union because they cannot complain about the man reselling their goods. Everyone is depressed that they were fooled, but Sinbad tosses up the sales document in the air, saying that this is the fun of trying out new things. He says that now he respects merchants even more after learning firsthand how shrewd they are. He says that money moves the world and merchants move the money. So basically, they are the ones who lead the world into prosperity. After that, Sinbad sends everyone back to Imuchak to return with more goods while he stays behind to deal with the merchant union. He thinks that he must learn all about the world and business to become a king, but then his stomach tells him that he must eat first. He only has a bronze coin with him that slips from his hand and is picked by the cunning blonde merchant from before. He hands it to Sinbad, and instead of confronting him, Sinbad invites him to dinner. At the end, the man introduces himself as Rashid, a trader from Balbad, which is the second most wealthy nation after Ream. Seeing how Sinbad treats him with respect, Rashid asks him if he realizes that he stole profit from him. Sinbad replies that he didn't know enough about business, so it was obvious that he would lose to a veteran. That is why he wants to learn more about the nuances of business from the same man who tricked him. Rashid is impressed by his greed and desire to learn, so he starts telling him that he failed to set the correct price for goods that Ream had never seen before. Sinbad notices the flow of Rook around the man and realizes that he is more than just a merchant. Rashid even knows about the Imuchak chief and asks Sinbad how he got his permission to trade in the goods because he visited the tribe to get permission to always return empty-handed. Sinbad recalls the lessons Rumu taught him, and he just smiles as he tells Rashid that it is a trade secret. However, he agrees to share that secret with him if he becomes his partner and tells him all he needs to know about this country. Rashid tells the boy that he is too cocky, but he is willing to give him a chance. Sinbad then uses the power of Valifor to freeze Rashid's drink and reveals that he conquered a dungeon. Rashid's attitude suddenly changes, and he begins to treat Sinbad with more respect as he hears tales of his adventures. He asks why he is trying to be a merchant, and Sinbad replies that he plans to revolutionize the world. He declares that he will create a country that will change the world. Rashid says that he has great ambitions, but he is still immature. He gets up and reveals that to join the merchant union, he needs a recommendation from a registered merchant and 1,000 gold coins, which most people cannot afford. Rashid challenges Sinbad that if he truly believes that he can make his dreams come true, he must raise 1,000 gold coins within a month, and then he will write a recommendation for him. As Rashid leaves, Sinbad realizes that this is the path he must follow to unlock his destiny. He goes to rest in a room that was paid for by Rashid, and he wonders what the true identity of the merchant is. He then begins wondering how he can earn 1,000 gold coins in a month. He knows that even if he works as a guard or a helper in a restaurant, he won't earn anything more than the minimum wage. Suddenly, his sword falls from its place, and Sinbad sees Rook flying as he picks it up and gets the way to earn money. 1 month later, as Rashid arrives in the city of Napolia, his guard tells him that there is a large crowd gathered in front of them. They go to the crowd to check what is happening and find Sinbad standing on a nearby rooftop. He begins reciting the story of the dungeons filled with treacherous traps and dangerous monsters. He tells the people his story in the third person and passionately describes how he fought a giant dragon and defeated it with his sword. He then summons lightning to impress everyone, and they cheer on him as they toss him bronze and silver coins. Sinbad collects them happily and then notices Rashid in the crowd. Rashid approaches him and says that it was a brilliant idea to entertain people for money, and Sinbad thanks him for it because he was the one who said his stories were interesting. Despite this, he has not yet earned the 1,000 gold coins required and asks Rashid to give him more time. The merchant just nods to his guard, who brings a fat pouch containing 1,000 gold coins for Sinbad. Rashid says that this is his fee for listening to his story, and he also accepts the offer to become Sinbad's partner. Sinbad is in awe of his gesture and asks him who he really is. The guard announces that the man pretending to be a merchant is actually King Rashid, the ruler of Balbad. Meanwhile, the ship from Imuchak territory is returning to Reem. Jafar is still overburdened by Rurumu's lessons, and he thinks that staying with Sinbad would have been better than this. He throws a tantrum, and to calm him down, Rurumu says that she knows how difficult it is for him to study because of his background as an assassin. She knows that he wants to serve Sinbad and not read useless books, but that is exactly why he must learn more to become useful. Rurumu suddenly falls to the ground and starts shivering. Jafar asks if she is fine, but she shocks him by revealing that she is pregnant and expecting a child soon. Rurumu explains that Imuchaks have a shorter pregnancy period than normal humans because of the harsh climate of the north, and she plans to use Jafar as her childbirth assistant and nanny. She soon gives birth to a healthy baby boy, and Jafar has trouble being the nanny of a baby who is roughly the same size as him. Meanwhile, Sinbad receives the permit from the Reem Merchant Union, and he thanks King Rashid for all his help. He is eager to start conducting business soon, but Rashid tells him that he should perform his theatrics for a bit more. Sinbad believes that it is unnecessary, and Rashid says that he is still an amateur when it comes to business. He doesn't have a shop, a warehouse to store his goods, or even a carriage to transport them. He tells Sinbad that he must advertise his shop too, which will take a lot of hard work. Rashid explains that there are many entertainment facilities in Reem, out of which the Gladiator Coliseum is the most remarkable. However, Rashid doesn't want Sinbad to take part in the gladiator battles and instead uses the theater to spread word about his adventure and shop while earning some good cash. Sinbad likes the idea and immediately runs to prepare for it after thanking Rashid. Soon after that, he reaches the Grand Theater in Reem and registers his show as the Dungeon Capturer. Many people are doubtful about the show, but then suddenly it starts snowing. They find Sinbad on the roof of the theater, and he draws his sword to release lightning, which startles everyone. After they calm down and open their eyes, they see a marvelous light in the sky and the snowflakes glimmering as they fall down. With those special effects, Sinbad begins reciting his story of capturing the dungeon, thrilling his audience. Soon, Sinbad became the biggest star in all of the Reem Empire, and he has daily houseful shows in the theater. As he is returning to the inn with Rashid one night, he hears loud cheering sounds from the outside. He peeks outside the carriage window and sees the gigantic Colosseum for the first time. A few days after that, the ship from Imuchak arrives there, and one of Rashid's guards, who serves as Sinbad's errand boy now, comes to receive Haina and others. Haina and Rurumu remain behind to unload their stuff, sending everyone ahead in the carriage. Jafar and others reach the Colosseum, where they find Sinbad delivering his performance to a huge crowd. Jafar is stunned, and the errand boy explains how Sinbad has been doing this to raise funds and gain popularity. In all this confusion, Hina's son Kiki climbs down from Jafar's shoulders and ventures into the Colosseum. He begins searching for him and hears his laughter coming from deep underground. There, Jafar is stunned to see the boy in the hands of a gigantic ape monster. He panics on seeing that, and the monster's attitude suddenly changes from friendly to angry. Jafar is scared of facing the monster, but he remembers how Sinbad risked his life to save him and decides to do the same for Kiki. He charges at the monster, dodging his attacks and swinging around the cell to attack it from behind. He uses his special move to target the monster's heart, but the boy's cries distract him, and he misses his mark. The monster grabs Jafar and smashes him to the ground, and he realizes that he cannot win against it. He then remembers how Sinbad promised to give him a home and gets stuck, saying that he's not the same old assassin he used to be. With the determination to save Kiki, Jafar awakens the power of the household vessel of the Jinn Ball. With his knives now charged with electricity magic, Jafar charges at the monster, just as he is about to eat the boy. He uses lightning as a rope to tie the monster down and then rescues Kiki before electrocuting the monster. He falls unconscious with that, and soon after that, Sinbad arrives there. As Jafar wakes up, he first worries about Kiki, but Sinbad tells him that the baby is safe. Jafar tells him that he was fighting the monster when his weapons suddenly started glowing. Sinbad realizes that, like the first dungeon capturer, Jafar is awakened as his first household, a subordinate warrior who can borrow his power. Later, Rurumu treats Jafar's injuries and thanks him for saving Kiki, saying that he is truly her first son. The next day, everyone visits Sinbad's new store, and they are stunned because it is a whole shopping mall. They are confused by what happened here when suddenly Sinbad comes there wearing 10 times more jewelry than an average American rapper. He tells everyone that this is the headquarters of the Sindria Trading Company, and they can finally start doing business in Reem. Sinbad thanks Rashid for teaching him everything, and he informs him that he will be returning to his country, Balbad, now. He advises him to write a book about his adventures because that would be a Harry Potter of this era. Rashid also invites him to his country to do business later, and he leaves. Sinbad's friends are shocked to learn that he studied business from the king of Balbad. Soon, the Sindria Trading Company starts doing serious business. Sinbad also writes his autobiography as suggested by Rashid, unaware that one day it would become the greatest piece of literature in the world. After some time has passed, Sinbad and his friends set out on a fresh journey. They reach the Sassan Kingdom, which is full of rocky terrain. As Sinbad, Hina, and Jafar climb through the mountainous path, Jafar explains that Sassan produces the finest metals in the world, but they do not do much international trade. Recently, they have started increasing their trade relationships with Reem, and this is a chance for the Sindria Trading Company to connect with them. Hina is worried about leaving the company to Vittel and Mahado, because Rurumu cannot help them much since she is pregnant with his second child. Sinbad tells him not to worry too much because Vittel and Mahado are good at their jobs. They continue their journey and soon come to a cliff from which they can see the magnificent capital of the Sassan Kingdom. The Sassan Kingdom worships an ancient god and forbids any contact with impure outsiders. In addition to that, they have superior knowledge and technology to the rest of the world. As Sinbad and his friends reach the capital, they are mesmerized by the level of their metal works. However, the people start running away from them, calling them impure outsiders. Even the guards tell them that they are not allowed to contact the civilians without permission and lead them to the administrative office. The officer there refuses to conduct any trade with outsiders and says that they only supplied some metals to Reem because of the long-standing friendship between the two nations. Sinbad asks the officer to enlighten him on how he can also establish friendly relations with Sassan. He declares that he wants to learn and understand all the cultures and beliefs in the world, and he asks the officer what he can do for their country. The officer is taken aback by that, but he tells Sinbad that if he really wants to be friends with them, he should visit the Sassan Knights, who are the ruling elites of the country. Sinbad and his friends reach the city just in time to see the procession of the Sassan Knights, led by the Night King Darius. All Sinbad needs to do is get approval from Darius to become an official friend of the country, so he approaches him without hesitation. Sinbad begins running parallel to Darius and introduces himself, but the guards stop him. They threaten to kill him if he doesn't back away now, but Darius stops them, saying that they don't need to spoil their spears with the blood of a mannerless man. Undeterred by that, Sinbad visits the castle of the Night King and asks the guards to let him in, repeating over and over that he is not a suspicious man. At night, they go to a bar made exclusively for outsiders, and Sinbad is determined to meet the king tomorrow. Hina is drunk now and says that they should just force their way in, while Jafar tries to tell the two of them to calm down. Suddenly, a native comes to Sinbad and asks if he can sit next to them. However, the waitress grabs him by the collar and rattles him around, telling him that he is not allowed into this place, which is only reserved for outsiders. She tells him to be aware of his position as the king's son, and Sinbad finds his chance to get approval. Soon he sits down to talk with Mistras, the son of Darius. The waitress is tense about letting Mistras talk to foreigners and hear stories about the outside world, but Sinbad rizzes her, and she lets them talk without an issue. With that, they start eating, and Mistras hogs down food and drinks because, as a knight apprentice, he is only allowed to eat plain and boring food. Once he is done eating, he expresses his dissatisfaction that the people of Sassan are not allowed in the outside world, which is why he wants to hear the stories of the outside world. Sinbad decides to fulfill his request, introduces himself as the dungeon capturer, and hands him the book, The Adventures of Sinbad. He then puts on a performance for Mistras, releasing electricity from his sword while reciting his story. Mistras is mystified by the awesome story and performance and impressed by the story in the scroll. He declares that he also wants to experience such freedom and adventure rather than staying in Sassan. He leaves happily after that, determined to go and see the outside world with his own eyes. The next day, he tries visiting Sinbad again, but his dad catches him in the act. He lectures him about breaking their code and getting involved with outsiders. Darius tells him to stop dreaming about going outside because he will soon become an official knight. He even brings out his younger brother and asks him not to become a bad influence on him. Mistras is pissed now, and as his dad tells him to reconsider his actions, he refuses. He declares that he is sick of living in this prison called Sassan and will never join the knights. Darius hits him with a solid slap, but despite that, Mistras refuses to obey him and leaves. He visits Sinbad and begs him to let him come with them. Suddenly, Sinbad spots someone hiding behind the door and calls them forth. It turns out to be Spartos, the younger brother of Mistras, who wants him to stay in Sassan and succeed their father as the next Night King. Mistras tells him to become the king instead because he refuses to be tied down in this country. Sinbad respects his determination now and accepts to take him along, but only if he can take responsibility for his actions. Mistress knows that too, and he asks Spartos to tell their dad that he is officially leaving the Knights. Spartos runs away on hearing that. The next day, as Sinbad and his friends are waiting for Mistress, Sinbad feels Rook flying behind him. He turns around to see Yunnan there, who remarks that he has grown old. Sinbad lashes out at him, saying that he has grown to be a handsome young man. He then introduces Yunnan to his friends as a weird traveler who led him into the dungeon with Baal. Yunnan has been keeping track of him and knows that he has a second djinn too. Yunnan tells Sinbad that ever since he captured Baal, more dungeons are popping up all over the world and people are starting to conquer them. There are dungeon capturers in Reem and Sassan, and even in his homeland of Parthivia. Yunnan asks Sinbad how he plans to deal with his fellow djinn users because they are all powerful people. He replies that he is here just to conduct business and nothing else, but he is quite interested to know that the Night King Darius is a dungeon capturer. Yunnan is amused by his reactions, and he summons Saruk before suddenly vanishing. Sinbad and his friends visit the headquarters of the Knights, where Mistress has defeated everyone except his dad. If he can defeat him too, he will be free to leave the Knights, but if he loses, he will lose his life. Mistress launches a relentless attack at Darius, who easily blocks all his attacks and tells him that he has good skill, but not enough strength. Mistress attacks him again, but Darius uses the power of his djinn and summons a barrier. Mistress is bounced back by the barrier, and the Knights believe that Darius used the power given to him by their god. Even Mistress believes that he is fighting against a divine power, but he still keeps attacking his dad in vain. He throws his lance at Darius and then quickly runs behind him to take him down with a surprise punch. However, the barrier is effective even there, and Mistress is flung back with his own strength reflected at him. Mistress is defeated, and as per the rules of the duel, Darius moves forth to finish him off, but then Sinbad suddenly asks him to stop. Darius's lance suddenly resonates with the djinn ball and Sinbad's sword. The Knights run to apprehend Sinbad, but he draws his sword and stuns everyone by using lightning. Darius asks him to stay out of their sacred duel, and Sinbad simply asks him if he got the power of God he used by conquering a dungeon. He walks towards Darius, saying that even though he got the power by emerging victorious, it is not the power of a god at all. He declares that anyone who can clear a dungeon can obtain that power, and he is misleading the devout people of Sasas by calling it God's power. Sinbad introduces himself as a dungeon capturer and challenges Darius to a fight. He is ready to accept any punishment if he loses, but if he wins, he wants to take Mistress with him and also get permission to do business with them. The Knights think that Sinbad is foolish for challenging the Night King, but they cannot dare arrest him because he showed them what they call God's power. Jafar understands that Sinbad is planning to make everyone aware that their Night King is not the only one who can use the power of the Jinni. That way he will show them that it is not a divine power and reduce the degree of their religious strictness. Sinbad once again asks Darius if he accepts his challenge. The Night King says that he is quite foul-mouthed and mannerless. He states that he doesn't care about Mistress at all, but since it concerns the beliefs of his nation, he will face him. Mistress runs towards Sinbad, telling him that he can't beat Darius. He explains that the invisible barrier protects him from all attacks and deflects them back at the attacker. Well, Sinbad is not going to be demotivated by that, and his friends believe that he can win. Sinbad charges at Darius and launches rapid attacks at him, but the Night King blocks them all easily. He attacks Sinbad after that, but he also dodges all his thrusts and jabs. Sinbad then uses the lightning bolt at Darius, who uses his barrier to reflect the lightning bolt towards him. Sinbad uses his sword at the last moment to deflect it away, and in the short moment Darius lets his barrier down, he attacks him again. Darius steps back and creates a barrier to block his attack, and the Knights are amazed that someone can fight on equal ground with their king. However, Sinbad just laughs and says that they consider this an equal fight. He decides to show everyone his real power and allows Bol's magic to flow into his body. Sinbad's arms grow in size, ripping through his clothing, and then scales sprout all over his body, transforming him into the Jinn equip mode. Sinbad tells Darius that this is the true power of a dungeon capturer and asks how long he can last against it. He lifts his sword and creates a giant lightning ball in the sky above the castle. A powerful lightning beam falls from the ball directly on top of Darius, who can barely block it with his barrier. The attack causes a lot of mess in the castle, and when the dust settles, the Knights find that both fighters are missing, and there is a giant hole in the roof. Sinbad is carrying Darius in a protective barrier as he flies over the city to go somewhere empty. The Night King wants to fight back, so Sinbad just drops him in the mountains from a great height. He descends after that and finds that Darius has survived the fall. Sinbad praises him for his sturdiness, but Darius asks him to stop behaving like the fight is already over. Sinbad sighs, realizing that the king has not yet learned his lesson, so he decides to show him his ultimate move, Bararak Seika, and shoots a devastating attack towards the mountains. The single attack demolishes everything in its path and even creates a gigantic dent in the largest mountain. Darius can't believe his eyes, and Sinbad asks him if he finally understands the difference in their powers. He says that if he was planning to invade the country, it would have already been destroyed by now, despite the divine power of the Night King. Darius asks him what his goal is in coming to Sasson, and Sinbad replies that he is here only to create friendly relations and establish a trade partnership. He apologizes for being impolite to Darius earlier, stating that it was just to lay the groundwork for negotiating with him. Sinbad tells Darius that dungeons are appearing all over the world and people are constantly challenging and capturing them. He claims that one day this will make various nations so powerful that wars will be much more destructive and bloody. Sinbad declares that he does not plan to wage wars with his power. Instead, he wants to end the era of violence. He professes his dream to create a world where all nations and people respect each other. Sinbad says that for that purpose, he wants to create a country that will be at the center of the new world, and he needs like-minded allies to help him change the world. He asks Darius to lend him his power as the king of Sasson to make the dream of a peaceful world come true. Back at the castle, the knights have surrounded Hina and others because their king has not returned even after half an hour. Jafar is about to pull out his weapons when suddenly a lightning bolt hits the floor, and out of it comes Sinbad and Darius. The knights are curious about who won their fight, but before Darius can claim defeat, Sinbad says that it was a draw. He says that both of them possessed equal power as dungeon capturers, so they decided not to fight needlessly. The knights are confused because only the king can have God's power, according to their religion. Darius says that the power of the dungeon only arises when the world is in imbalance. He states that right now, the world is heading towards the greatest crisis in history, and more chosen warriors are getting the power of dungeons. Darius says that he welcomes Sinbad as an ally, and the knights immediately swear by his words. They welcome Sinbad to Sasson, much to Mistress's shock. Later, Mistress leaves the castle to join Sinbad, and his dad approaches him to say goodbye. Darius says that he confined him to Sasson because of their beliefs, but now he thinks that it might be because of his jealousy. Darius admits that when he was his son's age, he also dreamed of going outside but could never express his wishes to his dad. Now he tells Mistress to explore the world on his behalf too, and the boy is brought to tears as he thanks his dad. Soon he reaches Sinbad and his friends and says he can't believe that he finally gets to go outside. Sinbad tells him that no matter how excited he is, he should not forget that he is going to work for him now. He explains that the relationship between his trading company and Sasson is more than just trade relations, and he is his country's ambassador. Suddenly, Spartus comes running there and hugs Mistress, asking why he was leaving without seeing him. He is upset that he always leaves him alone, and Mistress pats his head, saying that he was so overwhelmed by his issues that he could not tend to him. Hina decodes his words as the fact that he didn't want his rebellious attitude to cause trouble for his brother, and Spartos is moved to tears. He tells his brother that he is proud of him because he worked hard to attain his ambition. Mistress smiles and comforts his brother, asking him to become strong and then come to the outside world with him. With that, Mistress leaves with Sinbad for the start of his new life. On the other hand, all the knights are gathered in front of their holy monument, and they ask Darius if letting Mistress leave the country was the correct thing. He thinks that because of Sinbad, the Orthodox nation of Sasson was forced to change for the first time in centuries, and he believes that it is destiny determined by God. Earlier, as their fight ended and Sinbad asked Darius for his support, he told him that he reminded him of an old Sasson legend. According to the legend, the world was full of impurities when the people of Sasson arrived at this mountainous land. They had brought God's power from their homeland, and their king used the power to clean up all the impurities here. That first almighty king was hailed as their God, who brought true equality and peace to the world, and that is what Sinbad reminds Darius of. However, the name of that god is now lost. Back to the present, Darius thinks that he only agreed to an alliance with Sinbad because he saw God in him. The next morning, Sinbad and his team reach the seashore, and Mistress is amazed by the sight of water as far as he can see. He is excited to go out into the world and explore it, and eagerly asks Sinbad where they are going next. Jafar replies that they are going to visit a small nation, which is even more peculiar than Sasson, and they barely got permission to enter it. Jafar describes the Artemira kingdom as a country of women ruled by a war princess. Mistress gets a panic attack on hearing about a country of women because he is a lucky pervert, but Sinbad is ready to have the time of his life there. The Artemira kingdom is located in the southeast region of the continent, and it is a small country comparable in size and power to Sasson. The kingdom is protected from the influence of the outside world because of a large valley. The gigantic valley intimidates most visitors, and even Sinbad is in awe when his ship passes through it. While Sinbad and Mistress are geeking over the different types of plants and animals visible in the valley, Hina complains that it is too humid. Suddenly, Mistress spots a bird in the sky, and Sinbad thinks that it is a bit weird. The bird starts coming towards them and keeps on increasing in size as it gets closer. It is as large as a truck, and the two girls sitting on it smirk at the men on the ship as they fly past them. Everyone is astonished by the size of the bird, which returns to fly parallel to their ship. The girls greet the visitors and say that if they successfully reach the city, they will show them a good time. It is Mistress' first time hearing perverted talk, and he turns red as the girls say that they will make them work hard all night, even if they beg them to stop. However, when Sinbad says that he will accept their invitation and see them tonight, the girls suddenly get nervous in front of his manliness and say they were just joking. They fly away with that, and Jafar is infuriated by how irresponsibly their leader acts. They soon reach a makeshift port and park their ship there before heading out ahead on foot. Sinbad and Mistress are chasing good times with women, so they run ahead, while Jafar and Hina follow them at a comfortable pace. However, by evening, Sinbad's legs have given up, and he can't keep pace with Mistress and Jafar, who are used to such harsh journeys. He throws a tantrum on the ground and says that they should rest here for today. He asks Hina to carry him, but he is as exhausted as he is because of the heat and humidity. While Sinbad sulks in the corner, Jafar tries to cross a broken bridge using his ropes. Mistress asks him if they shouldn't stop to let Sinbad recover, but Jafar believes that he can do anything he wants to, so they should not spoil him. Mistress remarks that he seems to trust Sinbad a lot, and Jafar gets embarrassed to hear that. Then suddenly, Sinbad has a brilliant idea, and he uses his jinn Equipmo to use Baal's power and fly through the sky. However, Jafar ties him down and then electrocutes him, bringing him to the ground. He teaches him that no one in Artemira knows about jinn equips and flying humans, so they would be on guard if they saw him like that, and that would create a lot of problems for them. Sinbad is terrified of Jafar, and he is helpless as the former assassin ties him up and carries him to the other side. They take a break when the sun sets and then resume their journey under the moonlight. Sinbad and Hina have trouble walking all night, and they give up multiple times on the way. However, they successfully reach Artemira just as the sun rises over the horizon. The city is built directly on the walls of the valley, and everyone uses the giant birds to travel from one place to another. Ibn toddlers ride the gigantic birds, and one of them flies right past Sinbad's group. They decide to pay their respects to the queen of Artemira first, but because they stink after traveling non-stop, they must find a place to rest and wash up first. They approach some girls, asking them if there are any inns in the city. The girls tell them that there are no inns and then remark that they stink. Jafar asks them if there is any place where they can take a bath, and the girls say that they can either go to the bottom of the valley for a purification or to the red light area. Sinbad says that they must go to have a bath in the red light area because they cannot appear like this in front of the queen, but Jafar shoots down that idea. They go to the bottom of the valley for a purification, and on the way, Jafar bumps into a suspicious person with a peculiarly long nose. Soon after that, they finally reach the palace of the queen, and the guard tells them to be mindful of their words because the queen is not in a good mood today. They kneel before the queen, and Sinbad introduces themselves as the Sindria Trading Company, which wants to establish trade relationships with Artemira. However, they don't realize they are talking to a doll until the guard from earlier starts laughing. She approaches the throne, eats the doll away, and sits on the throne. She introduces herself as Queen Mira, who just wanted to tease them. She claims that many visitors look down on her because she's a woman, and that is why she dislikes men. She says that their letters mention that a woman named Rurumu is their advisor, but all she can see are men. Jafar explains that Rurumu is pregnant, so she couldn't come here, so Mira tells them to leave. She has no interest in talking to men, and they are only welcome here if they want to have babies with women of Artemira. Jafar pleads and begs her to listen to them, but Mira doesn't agree. So Sinbad gets up and approaches her, promising that he will never betray her. He holds her hand and pulls her closer, asking him to trust her. Mira smiles at him, asking if this is how he has been seducing women all over the world. Unfortunately, his riz is not strong enough to work on her, and she places her spear next to his neck before he can even notice it. She tells him that he will now learn how terrifying it is to try to seduce a woman only to betray her. Mira summons her guards and tells them to take away the men and lock them up. Suddenly, Sinbad's sword and Mira's staff are resonating, and he realizes that she is also a dungeon capturer. She recognizes it too and takes the sword away, telling Sinbad that even if he is a king candidate, it doesn't change the fact that he tried to deceive her. Mira tells her guards to beware of what the other man could be hiding and orders them to strip everyone down. They scream and resist, but the tables have been turned on them, and soon Sinbad, Mistress, and Jafar are at the edge of a cliff, naked and afraid. On Mira's command, her guards push them down the cliff, saying that they will truly let them hit if they return alive. As for Hina, they just restrain him because he is an Imuchak, and Mira has only heard about their unique physique. She plans to investigate him, and while Hina fears that he will be dissected, something far more terrible is waiting for him. An army of desperate girls surrounds him, ready to squeeze every last drop of his love juices out of his body. On the other hand, Sinbad and his friends somehow survive the fall. He plans to return to the surface as soon as possible. But first, they find leaves to cover their manhoods from the camera. They begin searching for a way out after that, but there is no way to climb up. On top of that, they have not eaten anything since they came to Artemira, and they are hungry now. Luckily, Mistress had some food stashed away in his turban, because this is a custom of the Sassan Knights. They have some confusing drama about how to split the food between them, and ultimately, Mistress eats one piece of the beef jerky while Sinbad and Jafar divide the other one. They'd fall asleep after that, and Sinbad soon wakes up to some strange hissing and rattling sounds. As he opens his eyes, he finds himself and his friends surrounded by snakes. He panics, throws the snakes, and gets his friends away from them as quickly as he can. Sinbad gives up on surviving now, but Jafar tells him to man up. He simply walks towards the snakes, picks one up, and then tears it in two with his bare hands. He tells Sinbad and Mistress that they are acting wimpy only because they are hungry, and he tells them to eat the snake to get some energy. He assures them that it is completely safe to eat snakes because he has survived on them whenever he went on assassination missions. They earth the snakes and then start adapting to the harsh conditions of the valley. They gather plants and vines to create a house, work every day to find ways to go up, and spend the nights resting after eating snakes. Soon Sinbad finishes butchering the snakes for the day, while Jafar has made a coarse cloth from the barks of the trees found in the region. Mistress finds a piece of wood that was washed ashore, and they plan to use it to repair their humble hut. After that, they have a snake barbecue for lunch, and Sinbad has even found a piece of rock salt. Then suddenly, Mistress snaps, asking why the hell are they adapting to live in this place. He asks his friends if they forgot why they are here, and they reply in unison that they are here to survive. The frustrated Mistress can only yell that they are wrong. He tells them that they are in the Artemira kingdom to establish trade relations, but the queen threw them down the cliff. Sinbad says that he has some faint memories of that, but they don't bother him one bit, and he calmly enjoys the grilled snakes. Jafar is the same and says that living like this is quite pleasant. Before Mistress can lash out at them, Sinbad explains that when he was young, food was scarce because of war and people helped each other out to survive. But after living a life of luxury in Reem, he forgot his roots, and living at the bottom of the valley has helped him reconnect with them. Mistress is still not satisfied even after the enlightening lecture and says that he wants to get out of this place as soon as possible. At night, he wanders around the valley, thinking of a way to get out. His biggest motivation is the woman who told him that she would let him hit if he returned to the surface. Suddenly, he steps on something soft and fleshy, and he is shocked when he realizes what it is. He takes his discovery back to their base, and both Sinbad and Jafar are blown away by the fact that he found a huge chunk of fresh meat. Not only is it delicious lamb meat, but it is also pre-cleaned and processed. While Sinbad and Jafar celebrate that they will have lamb chops tonight, Mistress tells them to use their brains. He asks them if they don't find it suspicious that a perfectly processed piece of meat would be lying at the bottom of the valley for them to find. He believes that someone placed it there as a clue to help them escape, but neither of them have an interest in that. They start cooking the lamb over the fire, and Sinbad takes out bits of precious stones stuck in it and throws them away because they are not worth anything. Mistress is so devastated that even precious stones cannot deter them now, but then suddenly, Sinbad has a change of heart. He tells Mistress that this discovery can really get them out of this place and asks him to show him where he found the piece of meat. He takes them to the place where he found the meat, and to everyone's surprise, more chunks of fresh meat are lying there even though they were not present during the day. Sinbad immediately goes to check on a piece and finds that it is perfectly fresh. He and Jafar start collecting them to eat later, and Mistress yells at them to not get sidetracked. He hits Sinbad, telling him that investigating the cause of the meat comes before eating, when suddenly, the giant birds from Artemira descend to the base of the valley. They pick up the pieces of meat and fly away, frustrating Sinbad because he planned to eat them all. Every last piece of meat is gone, and Mistress is devastated because they lost their only clue to return home. However, Sinbad comforts him, telling him that fate is on their side. It turns out that the women of Artemira throw the meat down so that precious stones get stuck to them, and then the birds bring them out. More specifically, they use their domesticated men for the job. The in charge of the site finds that the outcome of the stones is decreasing lately, and the effeminate men say that it is not their fault because the birds are not returning with any meat. The lady says that she will dock their pay if they cannot produce results, but the men start acting creepy, so she gives up. At the bottom, Sinbad and Jafar are collecting all the meat they can, and Mistress is once again devastated because he thought that Sinbad had found a way to escape. He begins crying, saying that he may never get out of this place, but Jafar tells him to trust Sinbad because he always has a plan. He says that Sinbad can turn any meaningless act into something that can change one's destiny. Well, it doesn't seem like he has any plans for the time being. Suddenly, some very huge chunks of meat fell down. Mistress thinks that it doesn't change anything, but Sinbad tells him that he was waiting for this day to escape from this place. Soon, the chunks of meat are brought to the surface, and as the men start taking the precious stones out of them, Sinbad makes his appearance from within one piece. His friends do the same, and the girls freak out and run away. Sinbad and friends borrow clothes from the men to cover themselves up. Mistress still doesn't understand what just happened, and Jafar explains the scheme of Artemira to retrieve the gemstones stuck in the meat. Ever since they started eating all the meat, they must have thought that a hungry carnivore was responsible for it, so they threw some huge pieces of meat that no creature would be able to eat quickly. That is what Sinbad counted on, and he successfully used it to escape from the bottom. Sinbad then turns to the men and asks them if they are being oppressed by the women of Artemira. They reply that no one is oppressing them, and it is just that the gender roles in Artemira are like that. Women do all the money-earning work, and men tend to the house. Some of them work part-time in such odd jobs to collect money, but they are quite satisfied with the lives they live. After hearing that, Sinbad says that they should visit the queen and show her that they survived. Queen Mira is in her bedroom, fawning over the beautiful necklace she took from her prisoners, when suddenly, Sinbad enters through her window. She tries to apprehend him, but he quickly moves closer to her and leans in for a kiss. Mira is about to give in to her womanly desires, but then Sinbad gets away, stealing the necklace she was wearing, which is his jinn vessel. He has also stolen the sword away from her because he believed that someone as cautious as her would keep the stolen vessels close to her. Mira is furious that a man outsmarted her, and she picks up her spear, uses the jinn-equipped mode, and turns into a three-headed woman. She tells Sinbad that he will learn about her true power now. Meanwhile, Jafar and Mistress have also recovered their equipment, and they want to rescue Hina before Sinbad can create a scene. They suddenly spot two lights in the sky and realize that Sinbad and Mina are fighting. Both of them use lightning-based attacks and cancel out each other's powers. Mina says that he cannot harm her because lightning is her element too, and Sinbad tells her that he has more than one jinn. He uses the jinn-equipped mode of Valifor and turns into a dog human. Mira thinks that it is just a deceptive trick, and then Sinbad emits faint light from the eyes on his palms. Mira attacks him first, and he just keeps on dodging her. He attacks her with ice bullets, but despite taking a direct hit, Mira is unharmed. She tells Sinbad that he is nothing compared to her. Her jinn, Cerberus, has 3 heads. One of them controls lightning, the other controls ice, and she controls fire, making her stronger than anyone else. She tells Sinbad that he can never defeat her, even with 2 of his jinns. Mira attacks him with a powerful attack, and he gets pushed against the wall as he tries to block it. She then uses her greatest fire attack and sends a 3-headed flame hound towards Sinbad, creating a huge explosion. Mira laughs, saying that he was as weak as any other man, but Sinbad is right behind her. She is frustrated that he is alive even after taking the hit, but little does she know that controlling ice is only Valifor's secondary power. Mira decides to use her ultimate attack that combines the power of all 3 elements, but then a correct chop hits the back of her head, and when she turns around, Sinbad is there. She wonders when he got behind her and when she didn't take her eyes off of him. She attacks him again, but he vanishes at the last moment and appears behind her back. Mira starts losing her confidence and her moves become erratic. This was because of Valifor's true power, which hampers the motion of things and steals energy from them. Using it, Sinbad was able to freeze her movement just as she was about to hit him and quickly dodge all her attacks. To finish the cocky queen off, Sinbad freezes her in ice, and she accepts him as the first man to ever dominate and defeat her. Soon after that, Sinbad and his friends make another official visit to Queen Mira. Mistress is anxious that they are going to be executed, but Jafar tells him to calm down. They soon reach the queen's court, where they find her in the middle of a spa treatment. Sinbad kneels before her, and she dismisses her servants as she reprimands him for acting like this after the intense action they had last night. She gets up, saying that because of fighting him, her skin has been ruined and she has needed intense skincare for a month now. However, it was the first time a man pinned her down and defeated her, so it was quite enjoyable. Sinbad says that he also had a lot of fun last night, but Mistress cannot bear the double-meaning lines anymore and faints because of a nosebleed. Later, after Mira gets dressed, she declares that the nation of Artemira will enter into a diplomatic treaty with the Sindria Trading Company. She states that a representative from Artemira will be sent to help them, and she wants to collaborate with them a lot in the future. Sinbad thanks her, and then Mira says that more than all this, she doesn't want a man like him to be her enemy. She asks him what his true goal is, and Sinbad tells her that he wants to create a world without war. He requests her cooperation in doing that, but she is suspicious. Sinbad says that the Jinn vessels will create a large-scale war one day, threatening the balance of the world. That is why he wants to create a powerful alliance with like-minded rulers like her that can stop any war from happening. He informs Mira that among his current allies are the king of the Imuchuk tribe and the Night King of Sassan. Mira is shocked to hear that Sinbad has friendly relations with two countries that are opposed to mingling with foreigners. Sinbad introduces Mistras as the son of the Night King, and Mira realizes that even the powerful Night King lost to him. She knows that the Jinn vessels are tools with incomparable power, and they could even rival the legendary sorceress of Reem. Jafar asks her what she means by the legendary sorceress because they have never left the city of Napoleon. Mira explains that the sorceress has devoted herself to making Reem the most prosperous nation in the world. She is said to be 200 years old and is rumored to be the legendary Magi. That is a foreign word to Sinbad and his friends. Mira explains that Magi are so shrouded in mystery, but they appear in legends all over the world. They have appeared in times of crisis and guided men to peaceful times. They are known as the great sorcerers of creation who can select king candidates. As Sinbad hears about the Magi, he sees the flow of Root clearly. Mira further explains that the Magi can create dungeons with just a swing of their wand and guide individuals worthy of obtaining the power of the king. Everything snaps into place within Sinbad's mind, and he realizes that Yunan is most probably a Magi. He asks Mira to tell him more about Magi, and the only additional fact she can give him is that the Magi are blessed by Rook, the energy that guides the flow of the world. She believes that it means that Magi are the embodiment of the will of the world. Mira believes that the magic is directing the increasing number of dungeons all over the world, and she agrees with Sinbad's ideal. Thus, she agrees to join his alliance. Soon after that, Sinbad and his friends go outside, where Jafar says that he is relieved that everything turned out fine. However, he is still not happy with Sinbad for using his Jinn equipment against the queen. On the other hand, Mistress is quite fidgety because they are going to leave Artemira tomorrow, and he plans to use the free time he has left here meaningfully. He wants to have fun with some easy women, and Sinbad begins fighting him over it. Suddenly, the woman who tempted him before pushing him down the cliff arrives there and claims to be surprised that he survived. Mistress immediately begins simping over her, and she agrees to give him the promised reward. Sinbad is frustrated as he finally understands why Mistress was so desperate about escaping from the valley. The woman then says that they will release the man they were holding captive, and immediately Hina comes there with a complete female squad clinging onto him. He looks like they really sucked out the last drop of energy from him, and now Mistress fears that his fate will be like this too. The girls leave with that, saying that they had fun researching the Imuchak man. Sinbad approaches Hina, asking how he will explain this to Rirumu, and he yells that he didn't cross the line. He swears that he didn't do anything wrong, and then suddenly, Mistress starts screaming that it should have been him. Sinbad tells him to stop crying because they still have a chance. He reminds him of the red light area here, and both of them decide to hit it up immediately. However, when they reach the first shop in the red light area, they come face to face with giant burly men with unnaturally long and pointy noses, and all excitement leaves their bodies. The next day it is time for them to leave Artemira. The representative that the queen is sending along with them greets them and introduces herself as Parsin. However, Hina is still recovering from the trauma he faced all this time, and Sinbad and Mistress lost their V card, but in the opposite way of what they wanted. They are devastated, but Jafar tells Parsin to not worry about them. They reach the place where they will board the giant birds that will take them to their ships. Even Queen Mira comes there to see them off, claiming that she has grown fond of them. She says that they must keep their ties strong because in the future, they will be the ones taking care of her daughters when they are ready to step out into the world. Two girls pop up from behind her, and more of them are already standing beside her. Mistress and Hina are shocked by the number, and Sinbad nervously remarks that her daughters are cute like her. Suddenly, her younger daughter approaches Sinbad and grabs his clothes, looking at him with awe. Mira laughs, saying that she might have taken a liking to him. She claims that her youngest daughter, Pisti, is also the most talented because she can already control the giant birds. Pisti places a red feather in Sinbad's ear, and Mira says that it is a great honor in their culture. She hopes that Sinbad's journey is blessed by Rook, and he can see them flow towards him. With that, they climb on the giant birds and fly away. Soon, they take their ship and reach Reem. The Sindria Trading Company had been running well in their absence, and as Sinbad made his appearance there, everyone rushed to greet him. He wants to meet Rurumu to catch up on everything that has happened in his absence, but learns that she went back home because it is her last month of pregnancy. They assure Hina that she and the baby are perfectly healthy. Sinbad realizes that Vittel must be leading the business at her place, so he visits his office. There he finds Vittel completely engrossed in the paperwork and gets startled when he notices Sinbad. He is emotional to see his boss again, but Sinbad just dumps more work on him. Vittel asks what these bills are, and Sinbad says that since he has returned, they need to throw a party. At the party, Sinbad introduces the new additions to his team. He first introduces Mistras as the son of the Night King of Sasson, and then Persine as a diplomat from Artemira. He tells everyone that Mistras is single and looking for a girlfriend, while Persine is scary when mad. Sinbad then declares that this is just the beginning, and the Sindria trading company will continue to grow. He declares that they will become the greatest trading company in all of Ream and then establish their own country. Later, Sinbad goes to the balcony to enjoy a moment of quiet, and his friends come looking for him. He tells them that the Sindria trading company became so big only because of the people they met on their way. He recalls all the people who have influenced his life and believes that there is a great force that is drawing them together. And somehow, Sinbad can see that great force and all the directions it can take. He can see the flow of destiny before his eyes, and he knows exactly which path to take to reach his goal. Meanwhile, the world is changing rapidly but silently. In Persuvia, Barbarossa has acquired a gin vessel, and Dragul and the princess are on the run. In the capital of Ream, legendary Magi and a red-haired gladiator are preparing for an uncertain future. In another country, the witch Fallon is cooperating with the prince, and Yunin is just watching everything unfold. As Sinbad sees a meteor shower just like the one that took place during his birth, he claims that he is special. The 16-year-old Sinbad doesn't know what the future holds for him, but regardless of what it is, he is going to challenge it head-on and win.